And we are live. Lots going on right now, especially on Capitol Hill, ladies and gentlemen, because those autopen hearings have just begun. So for the next 2 days, the Democrats are going to face the heat, except that some of them are too nervous to do so. Do you know that they're not even showing up at these things? I mean, come on. Chuck Schumer doesn't think that people care about this? You don't think we care when maybe you should have used the 25th Amendment because you had somebody who was pretty incapacitated in the office? You were actually trying to run them again? Thank you very much. Oh, we're going to get into all of it. We got a lot going on today. Welcome to the program. I am Trish Regan. We've got the autopen hearings beginning as we speak. I'm going to take you there live for some of the show business that's happening, shall we say, as the Democrats deliberately skip all of this. Meanwhile, New York is really trying to taunt the feds here, and I'll tell you, this is going to get them nowhere. The governor of New York is putting forward $50 million of taxpayer dollars to try to basically take on the federal government vis-a-vis the migrants that have come to the country and have been arrested for crime. So now she's got a legal fund dedicated to them. Kathy Hochul really going out of her way to try to stick it to the Trump administration. But I'm telling you, judging by what the Ninth Circuit just said just last night, and we'll get into that, they got nowhere to run. Oh, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was on The View. You can tell The View is really getting desperate. They're trying to bring in any friendly Republican they can, but he totally stunned those ladies into silence with his views on immigration. We're going to get to all of that. Plus, some really good news to tell you about. Again, today, I wasn't sure we were going to be able to do it, but sure enough, we're still here in the top 100. YouTube just came out with a new list. Trish Regan Show, named one of the top 100 YouTube podcasts in America. What do you know? We're up against all kinds of things there, too, because it's not just politics. It's not just news. So quite an honor. I'm super excited. You guys have done amazing and really helped to spread the word. So make sure, if you're just coming to the show, make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. We kick it off with the autopen hearings underway. What a scandal this is turning out to be. These senators are digging in. And the big concern here is that there may have been some kind of pay-to-play autopen scheme going on. I'm going to get to the representative from Tennessee who believes that may actually be the case. I mean, how the heck do you have 8,000 plus pardons all in one day unless, were those pardons for sale? That's the question that they want to ask. But more than that, they also want to get at why it is that nobody thought to invoke the 25th Amendment, given that Joe Biden was clearly, shall we say, beyond his capability at various times. I mean, you have only to think of the closet episode that Josh Hawley recently reminded us of, right? Josh Hawley saying the guy he was told by Secret Service would get lost in his closet. How do you have a president of the United States that doesn't even know his way around the closet?
Listen, I'll tell you something that I haven't said before because it came from a Secret Service whistleblower this past year. I talked to so many of them after the attempted assassinations of President Trump. But this Secret Service whistleblower actually was assigned to Biden, and he told me that Biden used to get lost in his closet in the mornings in the White House. I mean, the guy literally stumbling around in the White House residence couldn't find his way out of his own closet. The president of the United States. I mean, this is outrageous. We were lied to.
That's outrageous. Okay, so if that's true, we kind of need to know that. Do you not think? I mean, the fact that they were actually running them again, that tells you everything you need to know. I mean, I get it, right? You know, we talked about it here on the show at the time. 25th Amendment, do you invoke it? I mean, careful what you wish for, because then Kamala Harris would have been the president of the United States. I think they knew that was just as bad as we knew it was just as bad, right? But anyway, the point is that they didn't actually do what they needed to do in a moment of crisis. And you really can't have a situation like that, because if somebody's not completely clued in, right, game on, astute and ready to govern the country, then who the heck is actually governing the country? And this is what they're trying to get at. One, who was in charge? Two, was there anything fraudulent going on in terms of these possible pay-to-play scandals? And three, why wouldn't you invoke the 25th Amendment? I mean, this same crowd, right, was all over Donald Trump saying, we need the 25th Amendment. He's crazy, this, that, and the other. And yet when they actually had a guy in there who allegedly didn't even know his way around the closet, they didn't do anything. So is it surprising to you that they didn't show up at the hearings? Not very surprising. This is their boycotting of the hearings, which Senator Corrin says is effectively an admission of guilt. The Democrats are guilty because they won't even show up. Watch.
I will note that few of my Democratic colleagues are here today. Thank you to Senator Welch from Vermont for being here, leaving us with no other option than to take the boycotting of this hearing as an admission of guilt for their role in this crisis. We must not turn away from the search for answers.
Boom. All right? You can't turn away for the search for answers. You actually need these questions answered. This is really, really an important moment in time. One, because you got to ask yourself, if he was not equipped, why were they telling us otherwise? Why were they sitting there saying, best Biden ever? And I can go back to MSNBC. That was a pretty legendary quote, right? And all of them stood up for him and backed him until it was absolutely too darn late, because at the debates, it all got exposed. Of course, if you were paying attention, you would have seen it exposed much earlier. Would you not have? I mean, we played some of the clips here. I mean, I can go all the way back to Where's Jackie, right? Where's Jackie? Poor Jackie had passed away in a car accident months before, but apparently nobody told Biden.
And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this.
No, Jackie's not there. Poor Jackie. Jackie passed away. But then there was the moment at G7, and this is actually one of my favorite clips because it's when I really knew I liked Georgia Maloney. I mean, I always kind of liked her and her policies, but what a lady, right? What a class act. She saw Biden drifting away to the parachuter, and she went and got him. Take a look. Here he is. Okay, he's caught off guard. We're going to get my picture out of the way so you can see him. He sees something over on the side, and he starts wandering off. And Georgia, look at that. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees what's going on. She knows what the drill is, and she goes and gets him. It's like one of those senior moments, and we've all had experiences like that. You know, if you've lived a certain amount of time, you probably have had an experience like that. One of the things that was so notable in this particular clip is how long it took him to put his sunglasses on. In other words, he was slow. He was in bad shape. We all knew it. They knew it. They just didn't want to tell us. And so that's what these autopen hearings are about. Just exactly what really was going on. Because for goodness sakes, if he's getting lost in the closet, he can't even figure his sort of way around G7. At one point, they had to take a picture without him. And yet, he stood up on stage and was a train wreck. I mean, I don't know who ever allowed him to do that. So why was Dr. Jill Biden out there singing his praises after that darn debate? Again, it was like Emperor has no clothes. They didn't want to admit the elephant in the room.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lie! Yes.
Wow. No, it kind of feels like you're the one that was doing what? Lying to us about Joe Biden the entire time, right? The word on the street is that Dr. Jill was running the show via her chief of staff, Anthony Burrell. So you had to go through Anthony because Jill was controlling Biden. So what exactly was going down in those last few months, I'm going to say last few years. I'm going to say the entire 4 darn years, because Where's Jackie was way earlier. I said from the beginning they were running a guy from his basement. He had a teleprompter in front of him the entire time because apparently he couldn't think on his own. He never actually had to get out and campaign. And so they ran the guy from his basement, and then you got to ask yourself who was running things, because, you know, he didn't even know when he was supposed to stand or when he was supposed to sit. You know, the invisible chair thing. It turns out there was a chair there, right? So this is what they tried to say. Oh, it's a cheap fake. I don't care. There was a chair there. Fine. He doesn't know when to sit, when to stand, or what to do. Remember? Ooh, that was uncomfortable to watch. So there was a chair, okay? There was a chair. But we're all sitting there going, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And then, you know, the jokes started coming. But the jokes are coming because, unfortunately, he's asking for it. They're asking for it. They should have invoked the 25th. And now we have to worry about this. Okay, guys? Ladies and gentlemen, you got a new scandal that you got to actually really and truly worry about, because there's some 8,000 and change pardons that were put into place. And now there's the potential that all those pardons are going to get voided, because if it turns out that the guy didn't even know he was signing them, how can you have a president actually signing the pardons? Meanwhile, this is a bigger question that's being confronted right now in these hearings, and it comes from one Representative Tim Burchett out of Tennessee. I'm with my friend Benny recently, and he just laid it out on the line. He's worried that they were pulling a move, quite a move, and that these pardons were actually for sale. Let's listen.
Got staffers. I would look, Tennessee has had a history of this. We had a governor several governors ago. He's since passed away, but he sold pardons. You can look it up. His name was Ray Blanton. It made national news. And I mean, they wrote songs, Pardon Me, Ray. And it was a cash for clemency deal. And that's exactly what I think you're going to find out. You're going to find staffers that were able to take forms, get them and run them through some sort of bogus legal system. And then they auto-penned them. And there's probably people out on the street that shouldn't be, but somebody got rich off that. And, wow. And I think those people, I hate to say it, but you'll see something probably horrible happen to some of those people because it goes up the chain. This is a very dangerous town to play games in. I have no direct proof of that, but I'm just talking about history. And if you got somebody making $100,000 a year and somebody offers you $250,000 in some safety deposit box.
Whoa. Okay. So look, we need to be real about all of this. This is Washington, D.C. that we're talking about. And, I think Burchett doesn't necessarily want to have to go in that direction, but these are questions that need to be asked. So a few things that we need to get to the bottom of. Number one, how many people knew that he was not in good shape? Number two, if you knew he was not in good shape, why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you say something? Why was the 25th Amendment not enacted? That's why it is there, okay? That's why we have it on the books. Then you got to get at this question. If Joe Biden wasn't actually running the show, who was? Okay, who was running the show? I have my suspicions that Dr. Jill Biden had a little bit more power than you thought, which is why she was so adamant that he run. And we all knew he couldn't run, for goodness sakes. It was like elder abuse to see him out there, and they kept forcing him to do this. What was that about? Okay, so you got to get to the bottom of that. Does it make, for example, all those pardons void? Remember he told us he wasn't going to pardon his son? He sure did that. I think that may be the only one he actually physically signed. So big stuff, right? Because you can't have a situation where anything like this ever happens again. And I guess the most incredible revelation of all is that they were willing to do it again, all over again. They were willing to sit there and tell us we were wrong. We didn't know what we were looking at. I mean, I had to qualify everything saying, well, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. But you know what? I've lived long enough to sadly have seen this in people I love very much. And so we all know what we're looking at. And it turns out, sadly for Biden and his family, he actually has a very developed stage of prostate cancer. So in that particular situation, you got to ask yourself one of two things. One, why didn't he have a decent doctor? How can you have the president of the United States with a doctor who doesn't even perform the prostate exam? I get it. He's old. He doesn't need it. That's the thinking. But I'm sorry, he's the president of the United States. Okay? So we're going to take a little extra time and care, and we're going to dot our I's and cross our T's and make sure that all those exams that maybe you otherwise wouldn't need to get, you do get because you're the president of the United States. So that's number one. So you either have a lousy doctor and lousy medical care, or somebody knew and they covered it up. And we can't be in a situation where people are covering for the president of the United States. So that's a big deal. What did they know? Who knew it? When did they know it? Why did they cover it up? Who was running the show? And was any hanky-panky, for lack of a better word, going on in terms of money being exchanged for things that shouldn't have happened? Does this put all of the policy effectively in jeopardy? Is it all null and void? Are the pardons null and void? Because this guy didn't even know what he was signing. These are the questions that are going to come up. Of course, the Democrats hate it. They hate every bit of it. That's why they didn't even bother to show up. Chuck Schumer thinks that people don't care. The leading Democrat in the Senate thinks that you don't care. You don't care whether your president is healthy enough to be the president of the United States? I think we care, buddy boy.
What do you make of the Republicans holding this hearing on President Biden's cognitive abilities tomorrow and talking about the 25th
This is the kind of coarseness that America doesn't like, and they're just unrelenting in diversionary actions. This has nothing to do with cutting Medicaid costs, cutting Medicaid help, helping clean energy, keeping hungry kids fed.
But it does have a lot to do, Senator Schumer, with making sure that nothing like that happens again. In other words, accountability in this situation actually matters tremendously. And believe me, if the tables were turned and Donald Trump were acting like that, you'd be all over it in 2 seconds. For goodness sakes, you were the ones always calling for the 25th Amendment when he was actually in power. So let's not kid ourselves. You were deliberately skipping that for a reason because you think that maybe people won't pay attention if you don't show up. Well, I'm telling you, we're paying attention right here on the Trish Regan Show, and we're not going to stop paying attention because that never should have happened. The 25th Amendment should have been invoked. And if you didn't invoke it, why didn't you? There's going to be a lot more that comes out of this. The hearings are going into tomorrow as well, and they'll be in the House, and you know that there's separate investigations, both from the DOJ as well as the GOP into this. We're going to find out, I promise you that, exactly what went down. And people need to be held accountable. Meanwhile, New York is flipping out. Oh gosh, New York just, they can't manage this, right? Because they really don't like that Donald Trump is the president of the United States right now. And they really don't like that the feds are moving in, which, by the way, they have all the authorization to do because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said, yeah, you know what, California, you're fine in terms of, or rather, Donald Trump, you're fine in terms of nationalizing the National Guard, federalizing the National Guard, as they had to do last week because of all the protests that were going on. Well, New York doesn't like that because, you see, New York thinks it's its own little island. It can do its own little thing. I mean, Manhattan is an island, right? And Brad Lander, who's running for mayor of New York, he had a little bit of a dust-up, of course, yesterday. You know about that, where he got cuffed and hauled away by the feds because he tried to interfere with an arrest that was going on for somebody who was believed to be in the country illegally and had committed a crime. So here we are today with Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, trying to fan the flames here, trying to set up some kind of state versus federal disaster because she's going to use taxpayer money in the state of New York. This is fascinating considering that New Yorkers get that, or are looking, I should say, for that SALT deduction back, right? They want to make sure that they can deduct their state taxes from their federal taxes, or at least a certain portion of it. Well, I don't think that's going to fly because now you want to use taxpayer dollars to fight the feds? Come on. All right, here's Kathy. It's a little teeny bit hard to hear, so I encourage you to turn up the volume. I'm going to watch it together with you. It's a quick clip.
That are walking out of this courthouse, taken away from their families. They don't have the attention. They don't have the lawyers. And that's why the state of New York is providing $50 million to cover legal services for people who are finding themselves in this situation.
Thank you, by the way, Whiskey Dale, for the generosity. And you believe it. I'm not giving up on this story. And this bit from Kathy Hochul, I mean, this is total political theater. Once again, they know the rules. They know the laws. They know the Constitution. And yet they're sitting there saying, well, we're going to defend these guys. And we are not going to help the feds. We are not going to actually cooperate with them. I don't know what kind of island you think you're living on, really, in the state of New York or in California or in any of these states that think that they can sit there and fly in the face of federal law and get away with it. I'm sorry, the law is the law. And Brad Lander found that out yesterday when he tried to go in between the feds who were arresting someone believed to be in the country illegally and having believed to have committed a crime. He stands in the way of that. And they said, okay, buddy, you're out of here, cuffs and all, you know.
You don't have to. I'm not obstructing. I'm standing right here in the hallway. I asked to see the judicial warrant. By asking for a judicial warrant? You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens asking for a judicial warrant.
Cross, we go too. Sorry. Away. I'm safe. Where are you taking him?
So this video came from his
Hi,
wife.
I'm the Comptroller's press secretary. Where are you taking the Comptroller of the New York, the city of New York?
And with what authority?
And with what authority?
And where are you taking them?
We got a security detail. This number one is going to go with him, all right? Hang on for his number one. Hold on.
Who's number one?
That's his number one
Okay,
right
so
here,
you
all
can
right?
see him getting cuffed, taken out. You know, I will say to his credit, at least he did not physically push himself against the ICE agents like, you know, the lady in New Jersey, La Monica. La Monica McGuire. You know, I have to say that every single day because it's just so much fun to say. La Monica trying to be the next AOC, getting herself up on a little bit of a platform. She's now facing 17 years. Alina Habba's like, listen, you don't mess with us. You just don't do it, because that is effectively suggesting you might be guilty of assault on a federal agent, which carries with it up to 17 years in federal prison. So at least Brad Lander didn't actually look like he was assaulting anybody there. So it was a rather peaceful cuffing, if you would, and a hauling away. But the point is, the law is the law. And so the feds have the ability to go in and do this, and you can't stand in the way of that. And yet Kathy Hochul losing it. The governor of New York, you know, she's got the $50 million, right, that she's setting aside, and she just lost it with some obscenities in there. Oh my gosh, Kathy, really watch her language, okay? As she tried to talk to people yesterday, having just returned from Little Haiti. Yeah, she went on and on about Little Haiti. I don't know if that's going to play in the rest of the state the way she's hoping it will. But you know what? That's why we have elections. Vote her out. Here you go.
Do you want to know what I really think? Please. It's bull. How dare they take an elected official who's been going down there for weeks to escort people who are afraid to walk into a courthouse in the United States of America. So Brad Lander has stepped up to be a guiding help for them. And this is what happens to him. What the hell is happening to this country? I just left Little Haiti. People are being traumatized. Small businesses, people walking down the street. When I was there in August, the streets were mobbed. People were walking down the sidewalks. There were vendors everywhere. The traffic was crowded. Today, there was silence. People are living in fear. One woman just told me the ICE agents are going in and out of buildings there.
Well, you know what? Isn't that what people voted for? I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, nobody wants people that are, well, I shouldn't say that, actually. The numbers are actually reflecting, the polls are reflecting something else. In fact, almost half the state of New York believes that if you're here in this country illegally, that you need to be deported. But overwhelmingly, 79% of New Yorkers actually believe that if you have committed a crime and you are here in this country illegally, then yes, you should be deported. I mean, heck, even Whoopi Goldberg on The View couldn't disagree with that one and made it loud and clear that, yeah, I mean, if you've committed a crime and you're here illegally, then, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles, so to speak. Anyway, Elise Stefanik, the representative from New York, writing here, $50 million in New Yorkers' hard-earned taxpayer dollars are being used for illegal migrants' legal fees because of Kathy Hochul's illegals. First, New Yorkers' last failed leadership in New York. You know, I'll tell you, she was wonderful. I'm actually not playing it because I want to look at it. It's actually almost very graphic in terms of what she describes. If you would, Elise Stefanik, it shook me a bit because she's talking about the horrors that some innocent New Yorkers have had to deal with. And perhaps you know where I'm going when you think about the subway incident, et cetera. But she described them in rather very rich detail. And so it's a lot to hear. But Elise Stefanik had Kathy Hochul there for questioning on the Hill just last week. And so she put these questions to her. And I'll tell you, Hochul didn't even know who these migrants were that had committed these heinous crimes. And that's pretty telling in and of itself. It was quite an expose of Elise Stefanik. She's very good at that. Don't forget, she took down the lady who ran Harvard, right? Claudine Gay owns the end of her career to one Elise Stefanik, and perhaps Kathy Hochul will too. I mean, I don't know about you, but I could see Elise Stefanik at this point possibly running for governor of New York and winning that. So she just tore her apart in hearings last week, and then it's like it was just made to order because Kathy's out there saying we're going to take all this money and we're going to send it to illegal migrant fees. Now, look, here's the deal. Don't forget, the Supreme Court recently ruled that Donald Trump could revoke the status, the immigration status that was awarded to some 520,000 people, it might be 532,000 people. It was upwards of 500,000 people that Biden brought into this country. And many of them were from Haiti, as well as some Latin American countries. And he said, you know what? We are not going to allow for that anymore. So all of those people that had been brought here under that status, they are now no longer welcome. And Kathy Hochul wants to fight that, even though the Supreme Court said otherwise. So you understand, you're really seeing this kind of state versus federal government play out in real time. I mean, here's another headline from the other day. Trump to flood big cities like Los Angeles and NYC with ICE agents in the single largest mass deportation program in history. Here is his commentary. He talked about how ICE officers have shown incredible strength and determination, even in the face of all this discord, right? Because they don't exactly have the lawmakers from some of these states on their side. We saw that recently as yesterday, when we talked about how Letitia James is out there demanding to know if cops in, say, Oswego, New York, cooperated at all with the feds. And then she wants a list of who did and what they did, etc. This is getting really weird. And I'm going to remind you, and we can go through the Constitution again, but you know who has the power in this, and it's not Kathy Hochul, and it's not Letitia James. Anyway, he said, look, they're going to continue going on. They're going to continue doing their jobs. We've got a lot of deportation to do because it is too dangerous for everyday Americans that are here working hard, and this is what I was elected to do. So places like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, very, very, very blue places, right? Very liberal places. He wants ICE and Border Patrol all in there doing their jobs in the inner cities and getting anybody who is a problem, who is here illegally, has committed a crime, believed to have committed a crime. He wants that dealt with. Okay, so you're talking about what would be a really, really big undertaking. Some 20 million people coming here illegally under Biden, and we know that this was strange, okay? Strange. Because historically, Democrats had actually never even been for that. We talked yesterday about President Obama having deported somewhere around 1,000 people a day. And this was a very big cause of his. And he laid it out and said, look, the law is the law. And until you change the law, I'm here to enforce the law. Congress is here to enforce the law. Donald Trump says the same thing, and they flip out. Suddenly there are legal fees and funds to the tune of $50 million costing New York taxpayers so that Kathy Hochul can fight this battle, maybe on a national stage, because she wants a little bit more attention. I'm telling you, we have a problem. Letitia James, Kathy Hochul, Gavin Newsom, all cut from the same cloth, all trying to take on the federal government because they hate Trump. And so this will not end well for them. Letitia James out there suing along with 24 others. A whole bunch of states decided to band together and sue Donald Trump, the federal government, because they do not believe that the federal government, this is in defense of California, can actually nationalize or federalize the National Guard. But I got news for them. I got big news for them because something just happened, rather important, ladies and gentlemen. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, starting with, what do you know? Donald Trump and his administration. This coming out just last night. Here we go. Let's take a look. Appeals court seems inclined to let Trump control National Guard in LA for now. A 3-judge panel sounded skeptical of California's arguments that President Trump should return control of National Guard troops to the state. So this is a big deal. Again, just coming forward last night. Let me see if I can get this on the screen for you. This is from the New York Times, and it must have killed the New York Times to have to admit this. But the Ninth Circuit, which I should also remind you is known to be historically insanely liberal, okay? We're talking West Coast lefty stuff. And yet the Ninth Circuit, in this 65-minute hearing that they had, the 3-judge panel, they came out and said, well, like constitutionally, the president does have this right. And you know why the president has this right. We've been through it. They used this thing, the Title 10 U.S. Code 12406, which allows for, it's a federal statute, allowing for a president to call into federal service members and units of National Guard in such numbers as he considers necessary to execute the laws of the United States. Okay, so this was a big deal. He did this and they were like, you can't. I mean, you saw Gavin Newsom, you can't. Have some decency, Mr. President, you can't. And he's like, all these guys are going to be out here by noon on Friday. Well, it turns out, no, they weren't, because even though Gavin Newsom went and took this up in the court, even though that particular judge said, okay, Trump, you can't nationalize or federalize the National Guard, that then went to the appellate court, and it was on the Friday before the No Kings protest weekend. And on Friday, the liberal Ninth Circuit came out and said, you know what? For now, it stays. And we're going to look at it again next week. Well, they looked at it yesterday, and they're going to look at it again tomorrow. But right now, they're making the decision that, guess what? Donald Trump has that power. So New York, get ready. Letitia James, you can band together with all those states and try and create your own little union. But guess what? The Supreme Court of the United States is going to side with the feds. Let me be really clear on that. Because if you don't have a federal government that has the ability to put the laws that are on the books into place, then you're going to have a really big problem. All right, so this is the deal. I get it. They don't want the National Guard in New York. They don't want the National Guard in California. But if you're not enforcing the law, if you're standing in the way of the feds trying to enforce the law, then guess what you're going to get? You're going to get what you get. You're not going to get upset, as they say. That is what is going to happen. So Kathy, good luck. Letitia, good luck. Gavin, good luck. You can stomp and fight and throw a big temper tantrum and maybe get the law changed. But the law is the law. And so if you're not enforcing it, then guess what? Yes, the president has every right to say, I'm going to take over here. And by the way, historically it has happened. Think 1963, George Wallace, Alabama, okay? Where they wouldn't allow for integration at a particular college. And so what happened? They had to send in the troops, so to speak. You had to send in the federal troops. Now, in that particular case, I believe they were able to use the Insurrection Act. They also had a court order. But again, it gets back to where is the power? If Congress has the power to make the laws, and they do, and they make the laws and they say that you cannot have people illegally in the country, then who carries that out? The federal government is in charge of carrying that out. Why? Oh, because, you know, the federal government is in charge of things like immigration. And we went through this yesterday, and I don't need to do it all with you again, but you know, constitutionally, this is where we are, okay? Constitutionally, this is what happens. You've got all the power with the feds over the states, in part because of the Commerce Clause. You also have the Supremacy Clause. You have the Naturalization Clause. You name it. The power is with the federal government when it comes to immigration. So Kathy, you know, you can sit there and say, well, we're sanctuary, we're this, we're that. It doesn't matter. And that, again, has been proven out in the courts, 2012 in Arizona, where they tried to say that. And ultimately, what was decided was all this sanctuary business. No, it's not going anywhere. And so now you're in a moment where Letitia James is actually trying to stand in the way of federal government, where Kathy Hochul is standing in the way of federal government. And this is a big deal, okay? They kept saying that Donald Trump wants some kind of, you know, war, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a second, who wants what? You guys are the ones that are doing this. Let's be really clear. You guys are now the problem. Amazing, amazing, amazing. You know, I got to hand it to Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he went on to The View and tried to explain this to these ladies. Actually, he did it in a different way. He didn't get really legal or anything on them. He actually just explained that, you know, part of being an immigrant is acting a certain way and recognizing that you're a guest. We're going to get to that. They were totally stunned into silence, which is amazing. And I'm like, this guy, you know, I know Arnold's had his issues and said some things in the past that not necessarily sit so well with a lot of people, including me. But nonetheless, He really outdid himself on The View, and I want to show you that clip. But before I do, remember, we are completely independent here on the Trish Regan Show. We love being independent, and part of being independent is having great advertisers like our friends over at American Heart for Gold. You can call 1-844-495-1115 to learn more about investing in gold today. You can go to Trish Loves Gold. The great thing about these guys is you can get up to $15,000 with qualifying offers in free silver when you invest in gold, and you just, name drop a little and mention Trish. So go check that out today. You can text Trish to 65532 as well, 65532, and you'll get more information about all of this. I mean, I do see gold as one of those investments that is good through thick and through thin. I'm just going to check gold prices right now as we look at a market that's recovering from yesterday, and sure enough, gold basically even, but it had been, let's see, maybe yesterday it was up a little bit. It's one of those things that I tend to buy when it goes down. Check it out there. TrishLovesGold.com. Really, really good stuff. Meanwhile, another just heads up I wanted to give you is we've been looking at right now, as you know, we've been looking at, let me put this on the screen in the proper place. There we go. It's almost there, right? ProtectProsperity.com. We've been talking about how they're trying to get the bill through the House and the Senate, and it's really critical in terms of those tax cuts that they get renewed. I mean, I'm fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen, but and I think that this is why Donald Trump was elected, in part to deal with the economy as well as the immigration issues. So I'm hopeful, but it's not a sure thing yet, and I think it's really important. You know me, I've never met a tax cut I don't like. But all that said, it's critical for the country and for our economy that we do get these tax cuts. And the great folks over at AFP are just terrific. We love them, and they're so insightful and knowledgeable, and they have a team there at Protect Prosperity. I'd encourage you to check it out because it gives you a lot more information on the importance of the tax cuts. You can get involved at a grassroots level if you so desire, but I just think, look, we need all the help we can get economically speaking, do we not? And speaking of all the help we can get, I need all the vitamins I can get. Balance in Nature, that's what I take. You can take it as well. 35% off with code word Trish. Just call them, 1-800-246-8751, 1-800-246-8751, or go to balanceinnature.com. Use code word Trish, 35% off, plus free shipping, plus money back guarantee. So no harm, no foul. Balance in Nature, just one of the great ways to help you stay healthy. Besides your water, besides your exercise, besides eating right, this is one of the tricks. So check it out at balanceinnature.com. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger's stock just went up in my book because he achieved the impossible. I mean, really and truly the impossible, guys. You know how much those ladies on The View love to talk. You know how much nonsense they like to spout. Well, they're kind of up against it because Bob Iger has been telling them, hey, can you stop with the politics? Maybe do a little entertainment. Maybe do a little, I don't know, fashion or whatever stuff you ladies do. Oh, but they so don't too. Don't have them doing fashion. That would be game over. Anyway, they were like, no, we just want to do politics. And so there's this standoff going on between the ABC News president, the producer of The View, Bob Iger, and the talent on the show. So perhaps Bob was like, hey, let me call Arnold in. Maybe Arnold can help talk some sense into them. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of sense that could be even talked into Iger, shall we say. That's a whole other can of worms with Disney. Just look at the stock price. It tells you everything you need to know. But this show in particular is now facing new struggles. Its ratings are okay, remarkably. It's not suffering from quite the MSNBC problem, but it's not actually doing so well, one, with advertisers, or two, with the FCC. Don't forget, Brandon Carr is all over these guys over at ABC because of, well, look, a lot of the falseness that was put forward over the last however many years, as well as the DEI stuff. So ABC's in trouble. They've got to do something. They brought on Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I just got to say, I'm going to hand it to Arnie, right? Because he shut them up. This is unbelievable. You have to see this, okay? If there's one clip you got to see, it is this one. Arnold Schwarzenegger causing Joy Behar to just have her mouth on the floor. Let's watch it together.
Yourself, you are an immigrant. You're an immigrant in this country. Yeah. Did you have a visceral reaction to what they're doing, what ICE is doing, when you see the videos of it?
Well, I tell you, you said that the immigrant. I'm so proud and happy that I was embraced by the American people like that. I mean, imagine I came over here with the age of 21, with absolutely nothing. And then to create a career like that. I mean, in no other country in the world could you do that. Yeah. Every single thing, if it's my bodybuilding career, if it's my acting career, becoming governor, the beautiful family that I've created, all of this is because of America.
That's true.
And so this is why I'm so happy to see firsthand that this is the greatest country in the world, and this is the land of opportunity. And I think because I'm such a proud American and a proud immigrant that came to America, I was asked to do, on July 4th, a big speech, the keynote speech at Mount Vernon, that George Washington was laid to rest.
I just want to say, wait for it, okay? Because I know you guys are like, wait, what? Trust me. It gets really good.
Will become citizens that day.
That's great.
So it's really a great celebration. And this is what this is all about, is to celebrate people becoming Americans and coming to America and all that. And so I just think the world of the great kind of a history that we have with immigrants in America. But the key thing also is at the same time that we got to do things legal. That is the important thing, you know. So you got to do things legal. And those people that are doing illegal things in America and that are foreigners, they are not smart. Because when you come to America, you're a guest. And you have to behave like a guest. Like when I go to someone's house and I'm a guest, then I will do everything I can. Keep things clean and to make my bed and to do everything that is the right thing to do rather than committing a crime or being abusive or something like that. So that doesn't really work in this country. So I think the important thing is when you become an immigrant, to think about, okay, I go to America because I want to use America for the great opportunities that America has in education, in jobs, creating a family, all of those kind of things. Then you have to think about, okay, if I get all of those things from America, then I have to give something back. You have a responsibility as an immigrant to give back to America and to pay back to America and to go and do something for your community for no money whatsoever. Give something back to after-school programs, Special Olympics, or whatever it is. Make this country a better place.
Wow. Right? I mean, they didn't have much to say. I don't know if they were expecting that. And granted, he had kind of a nicer sort of ribbon on all of it, give back, etc. But I think the overall message was, you know what? If you're in this country, be thankful. Recognize how great it is to be part of this wonderful country. Remember when we were in school? I remember being in the 4th grade, and my social studies teacher taught me about the salad versus oh, wow. Okay, I'm having a Biden moment. It's like the salad versus the, I want to say the soup. Basically, like one is all mixed in together and the salad is all kind of lumpy and choppy. And there's two ways to think about society. And part of the beauty, right, of coming to America is y'all lump in together and y'all become one. And so you don't have, say, Little Haiti, where Kathy Hochul was proudly touring today and then saying, oh, gosh, everybody's upset. You don't have all these divisive divisions in neighborhoods where people only speak their language. You actually all become one because you're American. I used to say to my mom when I was a kid, because, you know, we've been here many generations now from Ireland. My family originally came over during the famine on my mom's side and under different circumstances on my dad's side. But I remember saying as a kid, for the Olympics, Mom, who do we root for, Ireland or America? And she was like, of course, America. Because you're American before you're anything else. And that's what's truly great and special about this nation. So we don't need people at the Dodger Stadium singing the national anthem in Spanish, for goodness sakes. No, we have one language. It's English, okay? And we need to have pride in that. Take pride in it. Take pride in being American first before anything else. We're all from somewhere, okay? And we all have different ethnic backgrounds, and it's tremendous and it's great. And that's what makes us special, the ability to pull from here, there, and everywhere to create something that is so uniquely American. Arnold Schwarzenegger gets that. I don't think any of the ladies on The View do. But let's remember that. Let's focus on that. In terms of people that are here illegally, look, you're here illegally and you committed a crime. I mean, that's double whammy. I don't know what Kathy Hochul expects. I mean, I guess she expects that we're going to still roll out a red carpet for them? How? Why? You know, look, Arnold, I don't know what Arnold's up to. Is he promoting a movie or something that I'm not aware of? That would be just like me, right? Because I'm not really into pop culture, but I know who he is, and he was the former governor of California. I know that during March 2020, he said some things that a lot of people really didn't like, and I know that he's had some rather significant indiscretions in his personal life. We'll leave it there. But he is, for whatever reason, getting out in front of this issue in a big way. Interestingly enough, it seems to be on a lot of ABC properties, which has me wondering, did Bob make a call? Here he is on Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel, who was actually kind of facing some heat for some things he said about California. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't like that the feds are coming in, nationalizing the National Guard. He didn't like that one single bit. And he said some things, and people were kind of angry. I actually heard from a lot of you guys saying, what the heck is Jimmy Kimmel doing on his show? Well, the next thing you know, he had Arnold in the seat, and it's like he didn't even know what to make of his guest. We did this in the shorts feed. I'll show you. Interestingly, Arnold Schwarzenegger does not blame Donald Trump for the protests out in LA that Jimmy Kimmel doesn't seem to think even exist. Anyway, Jimmy, you might want to be careful who you have on your show.
If the politicians would do the work, think about it. Now, what do you mean by that exactly?
What do you mean by
that? For decades, almost 4 decades, we have had a problem where they talked about immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform. But the Democrats and the Republicans, both of the parties, have no interest in solving this problem because they use that to raise money. And so what they do is they just keep pointing the finger at each other, and then they're surprised if all of a sudden we are using our middle finger on them, right? But I mean, it's all bogus, because I think that we can do better than that. Democrats and Republicans, and you know, when they talk about Democrats and Republicans, even though I'm a Republican, I tell you, it is sometimes disappointing. And then I think even just when you look at the symbols of the party, think about that. I mean, the Democrats, donkey, Republicans, elephant. And the donkey's a jackass. And of course, wherever the big animal goes, leaves a pile of dump.
And the moniker kind of fits. Well, I meant for the donkeys. That is, anyway. You see what I'm saying? They've got Arnold Schwarzenegger out there making the rounds on ABC all of a sudden, which has me wondering, you know, is it because of the big fight with the FCC? We've talked a lot about this. You see, Bob Iger's in all kinds of trouble with the FCC. And the FCC is doing this investigation into DEI. They also are basically looking at possibly taking away the ABC affiliations at hundreds of ABC affiliates all over the country, because the FCC governs those airwaves. And Brendan Carr has already said in a letter to Iger back in December, before they were even in the seat, hey, guess what? Americans don't trust you guys. And guess what? That $16 million legal bill you had to foot, thanks to Georgie Poo Stephanopoulos on his Sunday show, your chief political anchor, for goodness sakes, making all kinds of libelous claims about the president, that's more proof that, you know what, you're spinning a bunch of lies. And because of that, we may have to take action. On top of that, you had, of course, the DEI, the investigation that's still going on. And Iger's in a little bit of trouble, because even he was caught saying some things that maybe he shouldn't have been saying. In fact, he tries to pin it, interestingly enough, on the other Bob Chapek, if I said his name right, who really drove the stock down. People were kind of hoping Iger could salvage the situation, but I'm not so sure. This newly discovered tape has him praising DEI to the point where it makes you kind of wonder, is this conflict with the FCC and the investigation that's ongoing right now motivating his reasons for putting Arnold on The View and on Jimmy Kimmel? I don't know.
Well, I mean, Bob has talked about this eloquently since he's become CEO. I'll say a couple of things about it. You know, we've tended to shy away from politics. And in doing so, I think we've shied away from talking about issues that aren't political at all, like the issues that we're talking about today. Because we believe in doing so, maybe it looks like we're taking a stand. Well, in that reality, we should be taking a stand. I take responsibility for this. I was CEO for 15 years. And so I manage the company's public-facing processes and how we were portraying ourselves. And I think that we have to be less cautious, as Bob, I think, was just alluding to, about such things and not be concerned, like just commenting about what happened in Washington last week. That's not political on our part at all. We know that what we saw was fundamentally wrong and that it was rooted in hatred and disrespect and contempt and intolerance. And we should feel free as a company to comment about that without retribution. And another thing I want to say that I've learned these last 9 to 12 months is, I'm very proud of a lot of the work we've done in terms of diversity and inclusion on screen. When we did Coco, for instance, at Pixar, a great example of that, or Tiana, or of course, Black Panther is one of the great examples of that. I allowed those things to make me feel a bit complacent in a sense. It's not that I wanted to be that way, but I thought, wow, we did Black Panther. How great are we? And it caused me to not focus as much as I should have on the culture of the company and the environment and in the voices that were telling those stories as opposed to just how they were being portrayed on the screen.
Wow. All right. So Bobby Iger might have some challenges with that particular soundbite because it seems a tad bit incriminating in that guess who is going back in time? Is he not? Yes, that is the latest to have just come out. You see, they're going back in time to take a look at everything that went down over the last several years. And so he's not off the hook, so to speak, if things are improving in the here and now. And this is in part perhaps why he's bringing the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger out there to help do what needs to be done as they try to salvage this network. And so, yes, you suddenly have the View host getting all these warnings from Iger, etc. Will it make any difference? I don't know. I mean, I don't know as you can really change things unless you actually change the cast there on the show, which is why Whoopi and some of the others might actually find themselves on the line in terms of their jobs themselves. The show itself is likely on the line. And so maybe they're looking at Arnold as some kind of savior. Maybe he can join. Maybe he can join the ladies and talk some sense into them every now and then. But look, you have, again, only to look at the stock price and see how troubled this company is. I will make this point that, it would probably be better for them if they sold ABC. I know that Bob doesn't want to do it. He doesn't have an offer on the table that looks attractive enough. People are not valuing these news organizations or these entertainment organizations the way they were once. Why? Oh, because there's a whole new kid in town and it's called YouTube right here, right? It's wonderful. I mean, thank goodness we have YouTube, and thank goodness we just got a whole new. We got to let you know we are now in the top 100 again. It's kind of amazing. It's really great. I'm super excited about it. I thought I'd mention that. Guys, if you haven't gone, by the way, to see my company, 76 Research, please do that. Use code word $. We've got a stock on there that we just wrote about over Father's Day that's up like 23% since we recommended it. And it is our belief that it still has a long, good ways to go. So you can get all the picks there for $1 a month. $1 a month. Hey, you can swing it, right? Money back guarantee. It goes to $9.95 after the first 2 months. months, but that's my company, 76 Research, that I started for a reason. It's because I just want more people investing in this tremendous future that I firmly believe we have. Lots of good stuff ahead. Thank you again for being here. As always, make sure you subscribe, share, like, and I will see you live tomorrow. More coming your way, by the way, throughout the afternoon. We've got a few more stories I want to cover.